Deep within the interdimensional labyrinth of the webway lie the Oubliettes. These pitch-black laboratory dungeons serve as the operational nexus for the most feared faction in the dark city of Commorragh, the Haemonculi Covens. These entities operate as the supreme biological architects of Commorragh, practicing a meticulous, survival-driven science that treats flesh as a malleable resource. Positioning these laboratories within the webway is a precise tactical calculation. The extra-dimensional nature of the space shields the Covens from the psychic gaze of Slaanesh, the chaos entity that constantly drains the souls of the Eldari race in real space. The physical scale of these realms defies conventional architecture. The Haemonculi do not merely build within the Oubliettes, they build upon the remains of subjects. Massive structures known as the bone middens, the discarded skeletal remains of entire planetary populations, form the literal foundation of their laboratories. Amidst this calcified architecture sit vast arrays of glass vats, filled with a murky amniotic fluid. Suspended inside are the half-formed, regenerating bodies of Drukhari elites, slowly gestating back to full vitality. This massive accumulation of biological matter provides the Covens with an inexhaustible physical library of genetic data. Commorragh's society survives because the Haemonculi have successfully industrialized flesh. The Haemonculus itself is a post-Eldari entity. To achieve functional immortality, they have subjected their bodies to thousands of years of metabolic and anatomical overhauls, hollowing out their frames to remove vulnerable internal organs. This schematic illustrates the overhaul's first phase. Heart, lungs, and viscera are surgically relocated from the chest cavity into a reinforced dorsal hump. This centralization acts as a direct injection repository. Mechanical rigs constantly pump alchemical stimulants and neurotoxins into the spinal column, ensuring high reactivity. The cardiovascular system is entirely replaced. Natural blood is drained and replaced with searing ichor or highly concentrated molecular acid. This acidic bloodstream turns their life essence into a lethal defense mechanism. Any attacker attempting to wound a Haemonculus risks severe chemical burns or dissolution from the resulting arterial spray. Even their locomotion is heavily modified. Believing physical exertion to be a form of pollution, many Haemonculi navigate their laboratories by floating on anti-gravitic suspensor crystals or slithering on elongated prehensile bone tails grafted to their spines. Every anatomical alteration serves a specific purpose. By purging conventional biological weaknesses, they minimize their vulnerability to permanent death and maximize their operational capacity to inflict pain. The Covens rely on a specialized linger force to maintain these macro-scale operations. Strangely, the primary surgical assistants, known as Wracks or Haemoncolites, are volunteers. Lower caste Drukhari willingly surrender their bodies to the Covens, trading their autonomy to escape the constant threat of victimization in the Dark City. The clinical metamorphosis from Drukhari to Wrack is executed with watchmaker precision. The subject is methodically dissected, analyzed, and reassembled on the operating table while entirely conscious. The Haemonculus performs extensive neurological tuning throughout the procedure. They surgically isolate and alter individual nerve endings across the subject's body, ensuring the nervous system is calibrated to its highest possible sensitivity. Skeletal modifications provide the necessary utility for their new role. Heavy steel bone racks are grafted directly into the vertebrae, forcing the metal to physically erupt through the skin to provide a hanging structure for serums and surgical tools. The subject's hands are amputated. In their place, the Haemonculus attaches heavy steel gauntlets and wicked blades, specifically designed to facilitate the rapid injection of toxins or the extraction of bodily fluids. The physical reconstruction is finalized with permanent chemical conditioning. A continuous regimen of macrosteroids is routed into the Wrack's bloodstream, transforming their metabolism into an engine of high tensile endurance and aggression. The process concludes when the Wrack dons a featureless sensory deprivation mask. Stripped of their face and individual identity, they achieve safety in Commorragh through the only viable method available, becoming a pure, mindless extension of their master's will. The sterile precision afforded to the willing Wrack stands in stark contrast to the industrial brutality inflicted upon involuntary captives. When the Covens require heavy shock troops, they harvest members of the human or Tau races to forge Grotesques. The creation of a Grotesque relies on the administration of osteovirals. Delivered via a massive spinal macrosyringe, this biological agent overrides the captive's skeletal structure, forcing their bone growth into a violent hyperactive frenzy. The resulting anatomy is heavily disproportionate. The captive mutates into a top-heavy abomination, featuring massively engorged chests and thighs that are barely supported by a weeping, wasp-thin waist. To maintain control over a creature suffering this level of physical trauma, the Haemonculi induces neurological destruction, performing a total or partial lobotomy on the captive. Stripped of higher reasoning, the Grotesque exhibits a forlorn, unquestioning loyalty. Outside of combat, they act as docile pets, lingering obediently in the shadows of the Oubliettes. When deployed to the battlefield, their passivity is overwritten. High-yield combat drugs are violently channeled through their spinal racks, instantly triggering a blind, butchering frenzy. Within the Oubliettes, a sentient alien exists only as a raw biological canvas, to be painted with muscle, bone, and agony. To understand the biological toll of the Coven's practices, we must examine Urian Rakarth. As the lord of the prophets of flesh, Rakarth is the eldest Haemonculi in Commorragh, possessing an age that predates the fall of the Eldari Empire itself. Rakarth's pinnacle achievement was engineering the original Drukhari resurrection process. He is also the sole architect of the Grotesque, a variant that retains tactical combat consciousness while remaining nearly indestructible under heavy fire. However, Rakarth's Issical form reveals the severe corruption inherent in his science. His skin is so degraded that his face is held to his skull merely by taut cords of leathery flesh. This decay is the biological cost of millennia of death and rebirth. While the Covens can regenerate tissue, the continuous cycle of dying and regrowing causes a compounding degradation of the subject's genetic template. In Rakarth, this degradation manifests physically. His back sprouts a chaotic mass of vestigial, dead, and silver-strung limbs carried over from his past incarnations. To protect his decaying body in battle, Rakarth employs a rapid shutter physical clone field. This technology projects multiple holographic duplicates, allowing him to avoid incoming damage so he can safely walk the front lines and harvest choice subjects. Rakarth's horrific form serves as proof of a grim biological reality. Even the most rigorous xenoscience cannot prevent the soul's entropic degradation from permanently scarring the physical body over time. The extensive flesh crafting, the laboratories, and the endless raids all serve one specific operational purpose: defeating true death and denying the chaos god Slaanesh their souls. Drukhari necromancy relies on a soul anchor. An elite stores their essence in a rune-carved casket. Upon physical death, a Haemonculi uses this anchored fragment to regrow an entirely new host body from a single bone, pulling the soul back. The physical cost of this service is exorbitant. To fund the regeneration, clients pay the Covens in thousands of fresh captives, freshly extracted memories, or portions of their true names. To ensure compliance, Haemonculi routinely employ insurance policies on unreliable clients. They secretly implant parasitic slitworms that lay dormant in the flesh, ready to exsanguinate the host from the inside out upon the Haemonculi's command. In Commorragh, immortality functions as a strict clinical biological transaction enforced through extreme violence. To fuel this vast resurrection economy, the Covens require a constant supply of energy. They harvest this through the deployment of macro-scale biomechanical tools known as engines of pain, specifically the Talos and the Chronos. The Talos engine handles physical harvesting. It tracks targets across the battlefield, extracting musculature and nervous tissue from victims to be repurposed into the Coven's regenerative elixirs. The Chronos parasite engine performs metaphysical harvesting. Its metallic siphons extract the invisible psychic residue of pure terror directly from the air surrounding its victims. Inside the Chronos, this psychic residue of agony is distilled. It is processed into a restorative energy that is then radiated outward, physically rejuvenating any Drukhari fighting in its immediate vicinity. This localized saturation of pain serves a critical function. By absorbing the concentrated suffering of others, the Drukhari temporarily halt the continuous draining of their own souls by Slaanesh. The mechanics of the Kronos engine prove that agony has a measurable, tangible impact on the fabric of the warp. It is an energy source that the Covens have learned to extract and manipulate with precise technological efficiency. The Drukhari survive the metaphysical entropy of the universe, not through passion or chaotic cruelty. They survive through the cold, calculated, and perfectly industrialized architecture of eternal suffering.